Good morning everybody. Welcome. I hope you're all excited for a great day out in the bushveld. We are starting here in the sort of the center of the basin, more to the eastern side, and we're hoping to maybe even find some secretary birds for the escape to nature. We know more or less where they are nesting, so we're hoping that we're going to get them. Hello everybody. My name is Andrew. Morgan, he's behind the camera, and we're excited because it's very possible that we might know where a secretary bird couple might be nesting. So you must keep your fingers crossed for that, and we hope that maybe we get them this morning. We have seen the couple already. We're just waiting for them to sort of just come land on the nest so we can see exactly where it is. Exciting stuff. And I don't know if you can hear that bird calling, but there is a red-throated wryneck busy calling. Now, remember that we are live and interactive. So if you have any questions or comments that you want to send to us, please feel free. But yeah, if you are watching on the app or the website, you can register to ask those questions. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to Wild Earth so that we can send you some nice notifications. Yeah, that's it over there. So Morgan has spotted the red-throated wryneck. Come on, let's get him. Oh yes, well done Morgan. This is the first time we've ever been able to show it to you. It's a red-throated wryneck. How cool is that? It's not often you get to see these birds. You hear them more than you see them. Yeah, it's a little bit far off. We apologize for that, but we'll take it. It's one of the primitive woodpeckers out here. They do like dead trees and dead stumps and wood piles. They're very much attracted to those areas. Oh, there it goes over there, and off it's gone. So far it's warming up quite nicely here in the Eastern Cape. We started off with a flat wheel and some cold temperatures this morning early, but we managed to sort the flat wheel out quite quickly, and we're out and about, and the temperature is slowly starting to rise quite nicely. I believe it's going to be a warm day out today, so perfect for game viewing, perfect for the whole wilderness experience. Now, many of you will remember when just a few months ago when we spent so much time with the other pair of secretary birds. And in the time that we watched them, we saw them doing some really amazing things. And the amount of time that we spent with them was very special because there's not a lot of people on this planet that have done that actually. So we are very proud of ourselves for what we managed to see out there. And with all of you, we are hoping that we're going to get another nesting pair. When they start nesting again and we find the nesting site, which we presume we already have, because you can't always see the nest because it's always on the right on the top of a low bush, if you will, not very tall trees but rather thorny bushes. Then we can start to see them incubating the eggs, and when those eggs hatch, we can start to see them feeding the chicks, dribbling the water into their mouths and providing them with lots and lots of food like before. And who knows, we might just see them fledge. That would be epic. No, not at all. So I'm just keeping my eyes peeled for the secretary birds walking around, because we did spot them this morning. So we know that they are here. When they saw us, they sort of walked around, but then they took flight and they flew over the riverline onto the other bank. And we're just going to stick it out for a few segments over here. We'll see if they don't return back here. Now, this is what I love about the Escape to Nature experience, is that you can find things like this and you can spend as much time as you want. And from what I gather, from all the comments and questions and all those lovely things that people sent in, that everybody Davet, thank you very much for your question. So to tell the difference between male and female when it comes to secretary birds, it's a little bit difficult for me. Myself and Morgan were actually chatting about it earlier on, and I had a look in my book. It doesn't show the difference between the male and female, so I'll have to get back to you on that. But I believe that one of them has got a slightly shorter tail. But bear in mind that the differences between the male and female are very, very subtle. And it's also interesting that, you know, when they fledge, just a few months after they fledge, they pretty much resemble adults. And Lenny, also a very good question. Thanks for that. So Lenny, you know, according to the books and what has already been documented, it's mainly at the end of the dry season, and it makes sense because if you look at when Morgan, was it yourself and it was? Ooh, I'm trying to do the maths now. Was it yourself and Lauren? Yeah, there we go. So Lauren and Morgan initially started off viewing the previous secretary birds, and they were incubating the eggs, which was, you know, around midwinter. It was in August, somewhere around there. So they do prefer the end of the dry season, and the dry season here is winter. So yeah, they like to use the winter to breed just at the end of the dry season. But again, according to the information that is out there, that secretary birds, they can nest any time of the year, really. Right, we're going to stick around here, see what happens. But in the meantime, let's go to Ralph. He wants to say good morning to you all.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Escape to Nature, where I'm coming from the Okokoyo waterhole in the Etosha National Park of Namibia. And just in time for all these droves of animals coming down for a drink. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and I think we're in for a treat because look at the sheer numbers arriving. It is incredible. Looks like a bit of a grayish day in Etosha. I'm sure it's still pretty hot, and that's what's going to be driving the animals down to the water. But there is a bit of clouds around. There seem to be high clouds. I don't think it's going to be raining, but at least, well, you would think that it's taking a bit of the edge off. But sometimes when you do have these clouds around, it actually magnifies the heat, and it can be hotter than usual. So regardless, it does seem like the animals are rather thirsty. Have a look at that. And as always, don't forget that this is an interactive as well as live experience. So please send through your questions and your comments. And you can do that by registering on the Wild Earth website. You can download the app and we'd also suggest that you subscribe on the YouTube channel. We'd love for you to jump on board with us as we escape to nature. Now, have you ever seen any more stripes in a line? Look at that. It's incredible. I want to go in and have a closer look, but I just want to look at the enormity of it as well. A few there off on the right, but they are swamped by these zebra, that's for sure. Anyway, let's just choose a spot and head on in just to have a bit of a closer look. That's incredible. And everyone in a line. Lots and lots of Burchell's zebra. Yesterday it was also pretty busy, but we didn't see this many zebra all at once. They were coming in fits and starts. But today it looks like perfect timing for the start of the show. And here's some of the Namakwa sandgrass coming in for their morning drink. Some of the crows as well. Is today going to be the day when we have some elephants arriving, coming back from the eastern side of the reserve? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. I'm hoping so. It's heading towards the time when they should be returning to this part of the reserve. But you just never know when they're going to decide to move back. Looks like an easterly wind as well. And that easterly wind, when it does blow, it's a hot wind. So it will be adding to the warmth or the heat of the day. If it comes in from the predominant wind, it's a southwester coming in from the ocean. That's a cooler wind. But the easterly is that very well-known desert wind, which then creates a lot more warmth. And the east wind is notorious in Namibia. It comes through in the winter months, and that's what creates those desert storms, blowing sand out to sea. And sometimes when it really gets going, you can even see it on satellite imagery, where it can blow the sand up to 200 kilometers out to sea, and you can see it from satellite photos. It's absolutely amazing. But if you live in a place like Swakopmund, when that east wind blows, you need to literally close up everything that is electronic. I used to have to put in my computer in my cupboard, wrapped in plastic, because there's a fine dust that includes mica, which is almost like glitter that hangs in the air, and it comes through everywhere, under your door, and it just literally coats everything. We used to see on the table, we used to wipe it, and an hour later, you run your finger over the desk and it's just full of dust. So when you walk in town, everywhere, you've got this floating glitter everywhere, and it's very hot. It's incredible. So ask any Namibian local about the east wind, and he'll have lots of stories to tell you. It does get stronger as you head further into winter, and sometimes you have winter days that are even hotter than in summer, because that southwesterly comes off the ocean, it cools things down, and that's the predominant wind that you get in summer. However, in winter, once these easterlies start blowing, it warms things up considerably. It also blows the fog belt out to sea, and so you have these very hot winter days. So in South Africa, we would call them berg winds, but for us here, particularly on the east coast of South Africa, that is then the westerly. So it's totally in the opposite direction, but it's coming from the inland, blowing out to sea, and you have these very hot winter days. It's incredible. You can go through a period of very cold as the winter months approach, but then as soon as that westerly starts blowing, it heats things up, and as I say, can be hotter than even in the summer months. It's incredible. But it also will add to the thirst of the animals. So as you can see, that's obviously what's driven them down. They came down in their droves. Looks like they're thinning out now, probably going to be heading off and going to look either for grazing or for shelter and get out of the sun a bit. They may have been feeding during the night, which is a good time and a preferred time for animals to feed. And now during the day when it does get hot, you very often find them going to look for shade and then resting up in the middle and the hotter part of the day. Sort of interspersed with coming down to drink. But that's the sort of rhythms that you may find the animals moving through. Wow, that was a lot of zebra indeed. I'm sure we'll have lots of oryx and gemsbok, same animal, but also springbok, blue wildebeest, and all sorts coming down to have a drink. There's our one oryx. There's always one, at least one. You do find them more comfortable being on their own. You'll see the zebra not really like that. Cindy Lee, it is incredible, isn't it? It's beautiful, especially when so many of them come down like that. I'll just go in on our one lonely oryx. And a lonely springbok as well. Look how small he looks in comparison to this oryx, but I think it is a youngster. Doesn't even seem to have any horns. Or does it? Are they hidden behind its ears? No, I think this must be a youngster. There you can see the size difference between the little springbok and the oryx. I'm hoping we'll get to see a few more of the black-faced impala coming down today. This is not the best spot to view them, but there are some area of gemsbok vlakte, olifantsbad, and Aus, and that's to the east of Okukuyu, but within Game Drive region, that's where you will then see lots more of the black-faced impala, and it's probably the primary food source for a lot of the leopards that you'll also find in that area. So where there's more black-faced impala, more chance of seeing leopards, of which I've seen many in Etosha. They're not habituated like you might find them in the Sabi Sands, but there are some beasts. No more signs of elephants. As we can see there on the left, there seem to have been a little bit of activity in the last week or so by a couple of individuals, it looks like, with the dung that has been deposited there. But we haven't seen any. And then it seems to be thinning out a little bit. All the stripes have had their nice early morning drink and they've dazzled themselves off into the distance. And I'm going to dazzle you off into the distance to Lauren.
Good morning everyone. Welcome to a great and busy start in Madikwe Game Reserve. It's already hot, it's already sunny. Clo Dam is already busy with the clo. You gotta love that. It's our last day up this side, so I'm gonna make the most of it. Good morning, my name is Lauren. I have Rian on camera, and we are gonna sit here as we normally do, escape to nature together, and hopefully have lots of interesting questions and discussions. If not, it is really me just talking to myself. I don't really know what Ralph's been talking about all morning, but I'm sure it has been highly entertaining, and he can be involved in the good old discussions too. But it's now 10 to 10 in South Africa, and it looks like the fresh water is already pumping. How do I know that? Well, I know that because the elephants are there, right on time. Jessie, as usual, I know. Honestly, Clodam just never fails, does it, Jessie? And this is why we keep coming here. Tomorrow afternoon, we will be moving to the east. And it, as I've mentioned every day, it probably won't be too easy to come to Clodam. It's possible, but it's just very, very far. And there's always a lot happening on the east and the airstrip and all sorts of things that will probably stick around that area. So I just want to cherish this and make the most of this. And it's just really special. I mean, look at that one. Knee deep, that water is up to your belly. And you're loving it. And yesterday, if you were watching, we had two Marshall Eagles, and Rianne did an incredible job to just follow them soaring, and it was such a wonderful day yesterday. Of course, it was Wilder's birthday as well. And it was World Hyena Day. Oh my goodness, my diary cannot cope. Not that I have a diary, but it's too much, it's too much. Anyway, we're just going to enjoy Clodam while we can. They always look slightly uncomfortable, actually. Oh, look at that little one trying to get out. Mama's gonna help you. Oh, no, we're deciding to stay in. Too much fun. It's not so easy for them to haul their big cumbersome bodies out, and when you watch them, it can be a little bit entertaining. Just because they're not really equipped to move their bodies that way. See? It's very difficult. You gotta use your trunk and everything else you have to pull yourself out of the water and up a small wall.
Wild Earth's mission is an expensive one, but we know that our live experience is important to so many people that cannot afford to pay for it. We have added a donate button to our website. By donating, you are directly helping us share our free nature experiences with the world. We want Wild Earth to reach children, budding conservationists, and the less fortunate. A little money goes a long way. You can make a difference to someone today.
Okay, we're apparently still live. Sorry about that. You can see we have a buffalo walking right past them. He's a big old boy. Look at that slow walk. Almost looks sore. Almost looks stiff. Covered in mud. King of the wallowing. A dagger boy. Still a beast. Still an absolute powerhouse. But you can just see that he looks a little bit like all these joints are sore. And he's probably going to come down here and plump himself right in the water. We don't see... We don't see buffalo too often out here. They're just, well, we do. They're just not really relaxed around cars. Look at this. Look at the width of those horns. Remarkable. What a weight. Look at that, two of the big five, two beasts in their own right, two magnificent animals side by side, kind of. completely ignoring each other, not bothering with each other. They're not part of each other's umwelt, not really. They're not a threat to one another. Okay, the buffalo knows that the elephants might get a bit overreactive at some points, and the elephants probably know that the buffalo will get grumpy at some points, but they're not bothered with each other's presence. They're both here for their own reasons, similar reasons, or I guess the same reason, water. The liquid of life. DM mascot. No, they don't. The trunk is more a nose than anything else, than a mouth. The mouth is a mouth, if that makes sense, and the trunk is almost like a fusion of the upper lip and the nose. And it's obviously a very sort of special appendage that has many different functions, but it doesn't replace or act as a mouth, if that makes sense. A mouth is a mouth, so when a youngster goes to suckle, what they'll do is they'll put their trunk to the side, they'll sort of lift it up and throw it to the side, and they suckle with their mouth. So even when they pull up water, they never drink the water through the trunk. They do use it as a straw, so they pull it up with their trunk, but then they pour it into their mouth. So they don't actually drink or eat using their trunk. It's a really sensitive organ, and I guess it's almost like an arm, a nose, and a straw combined into this fantastic tool that has many different functions. And if you were watching yesterday, I was talking about the blurring of senses and how in humans it's quite a unique thing, synesthesia, whereas in the animal kingdom it's actually quite common. The lines between the senses are blurred, especially taste and smell. Very blurred, almost to the point as in which is taste and which is smell. Have you ever tried eating your dinner while pinching your nose? Have you tried that, Rian?
It's like when you have a cold.
Okay, didn't pinch his nose, but if you've got a cold, exactly, and you can't taste anything. That's how blurred the lines are, and in the animal kingdom it's just very common for all of these senses to sort of mix. Perceptual blurring. And because the trunk is positioned where it's positioned, we automatically look at an elephant and we think, it's a nose. And yes, it absolutely is. It is a nose, and it does smell, and it has lots of chemoreceptors and 7 olfactory turbinals, but it has many different functions. It's playing many different roles for the elephant, and I think it's important to also recognize that. It most likely does taste, it does smell, it feels vibrations. So it's not just an organ of olfaction. Every organism is always using a combination of senses, always, even us. We are just so tuned into vision that we just sometimes think we're just seeing things, but we're actually smelling, we're actually feeling, we're actually hearing, all at the same time. And so is every organism. Jackie, darling, you love seeing Clodagh soothe your nerves. I'm sad to hear that you have nerves, but I'm glad that we can at least soothe them with this. And to be honest, a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression. I think all of us to some extent, maybe at some point in our life. And I definitely get anxiety, and I think nature is more often than not, sorry, I don't know what this elephant is doing, more often than not always the answer. Go out in nature, even if it's just the local park, the local woods, your garden. Start a garden, create a garden, no matter how small. Even if you can't go outside, that's also okay. Watch Wild Earth. We will connect you, and that's why we're here. And it's also important for me not to talk the entire time. You hear my voice enough. And it's also important for you to listen and enjoy and just breathe in this sighting. That buffalo over there still hasn't sort of started wallowing yet. It can be hilarious because the old Dagger boys can actually get so comfortable lying down on mud that they end up roly-poling. And they're quite good at it. So I imagine this boy is going to do that, but he's too busy quenching his thirst right now. Buffaloes need to drink a lot, especially the older they get, because the older they get, their digestive system becomes less efficient. Same with us all. So they're heavily water dependent anyway, and this is definitely an old boy. Come on, boy, we want to see your gymnastics. Sorry if you can hear the impala. They're, oh my goodness, they're up to no good, but it's behind the vehicle. But in case you wonder what that noise is, it's the male impalas rutting their heads off. Oh, we're going for a scratch. This is a rubbing post, a very iconic rubbing post. And it's just a tree stump, but it's been rubbed by so many species that it's now polished and shiny. Everybody needs a good scratch. They just never want to leave the water. Ah. That is where you drink.
So, having now crossed over to the Djuma waterhole camera, and I'm just doing a little bit of checking around in the tree where the parrots, the brown-headed parrots, are nesting, and because it did look like there was a little bit of a bird party here, but I think it's sparrows that are just flitting in and about here. Let's have a look. Or is it a white-browed something or other? Didn't quite get what it was there. Was it a white-browed scrub robin? Didn't look like it. It looked more like a sparrow. Anyway, this is the tree down on the bottom there where the parrots nest. And earlier in the water we did see a hamerkop. I think it may have flown off now. The hippos are there. I'm sure we'll have a look at them in a minute. I just want to keep on seeing what birds these are that are flitting about in these two trees. The one on the left now having been ring-barked by the elephants. The one on the right partially so. So that one's still surviving. The one on the left not so anymore. It is now dead. But that does make it available for birds to nest in, and also for the wood-boring beetles that they go looking for food, especially the woodpeckers. So just checking in and seeing what other birds are flitting about here. There's often quite a bit of activity in these trees. Not seeing too much now, though. Are our parrots there? Don't see any movement. I don't think so. They might be out foraging, going and looking for nuts and seeds. I think there is a little bit of wind at Djuma, but it's not as bad as it has been over the last few days. It was extremely windy yesterday. We could hardly use the camera. It was getting blown all over the place. At least now we've got a little bit of stability. You might see a little bit of movement, but it's not much in the way of wind, so it's much better today. Always got to just look with a fine tooth comb, because you never know what we're going to spot in these trees. It looks to be a little bit quiet. Anyway, we'll keep on scanning around, seeing what else we can find. There you can hear the hippos, our residents in the water itself. Keep an eye out. If you do spot anything that I miss, just let me know. So you can see on the surface of the water there, not too many ripples, but you can see that the grass is being blown. So there is a bit of wind, but it's not too hectic. Maybe it will increase as the day goes on, but for now, not too bad. It's always nice though when the wind does come through. It does cool things off a bit. It can be rather muggy here in Djuma. Keep your eye out for predators, especially any spots that we might see on the bank. A leopard coming down for a drink. There's a blacksmith lapwing, our little bird on stilts. Ever present here on the shores of these waterholes. So this little pan here in the front is artificial. It's just fed, and particularly so when the actual waterhole dries up. It's nice and full now, but there are times when it does completely dry up. So they just keep this little waterhole full, and then at least the animals in this area have something or a place to come and drink. Still lots of little dragonflies around. As we head into the winter months, so slowly but surely we start getting less and less insects as they become dormant. And we'll see then the explosion in springtime again. When normally when we get towards the first rains, it doesn't necessarily have to rain for them to hatch and come out. It's just that when you get like a first thunderstorm, even without rain, and that lightning and noise, etc., it starts to bring everything out already. Are we going to see the elephants coming down to drink again? We'll have to wait and see. There were lots here yesterday, but none for now. As always, lots of fish rising in the water, mostly catfish or barbel.
Thanks to our wonderful Wild Earth explorers, Wild Earth Kids is back. Your monthly subscriptions have allowed us to relaunch Wild Earth Schools on a weekly basis, every Wednesday for the first hour of the Sunset Safari.
You guys bring a smile to my face every single day.
Sign your class up for a special virtual field trip to Africa, because touching the lives of the future protectors of our Earth truly matters.
So yeah, he came in with real purpose. Now he's taking it easy. Maybe he knows he's reached his destination, but he'll take his time for a drink. I think the hippos may have noticed that he's there. And one is now moving off to catch up with the rest of the group on the opposite side of the waterhole, nice and far away from this elephant. And especially if there's more elephants coming down, they don't really like being too close to them. So if that's the reason it's moving, it would make sense. Still a little bit of movement from that elephant. I'm not sure if he's feeding or if he's just moving about a little bit. I think the hippos may have just moved into a spot where they can get a bit of view on what this is. Now it looks like he might be coming down. Maybe, maybe not. He has turned and it looks like he's got his ears out. Maybe he's also spotted the hippos. So Elizabeth, they can be spooked at waterholes, especially when, like now, when you've got hippos in the water. I've seen elephants get spooked by crocodiles and hippos. So yeah, they will be spooked, as they also understand that there can be danger in the water. You have a crocodile grabbing its trunk. The territorial bulls of the hippos, they can be quite aggressive to elephants when they come down to the water. But generally, so they, they'll move in and just take over with their sheer size, especially the older, bigger, more confident animals, particularly so the bulls. And if you've got a bull in must that gets confronted by a territorial bull hippo, he may even charge. So the elephant is always going to be winning that one. But it is the real element for the hippo. So he'll probably charge to the edge of the water. But I've even seen elephants charge right into the water as well and push the hippos away. But they can be spooked, particularly young bulls. But this one seems quite happy there in the shade. Maybe it's a nice cool spot. It looked like it was wafting its ears quite a bit. So I think he's trying to cool down. And a little bit of feeding now. I'm not quite sure on what. Maybe there's some seed pods. Definitely feeding on something there. And being watched by the hippos. So at least we're getting to see elephants at Djuma, where at Okukoyo, not quite so at this time of year. Not too many elephants about there. So it's nice that it's a bit different and different animals. It's nice to switch between the two areas. You don't get the sheer numbers of game here at the Djuma Waterhole that you do at Okukuyu, but we also haven't seen any elephants there in Okukuyu for a long time. So there's no hippos as well, that's for sure. Is he just feeding on the grass? Maybe. So you might have walked quite a distance, and they need to constantly replace the calories as they burn the energy to move. So elephants really have a high energy intake requirement. So if they've walked long distance, they do need to spend quite a lot of time feeding and replacing their energy that would have been lost to get to that particular point. And this is a constant battle for them. They can't walk far without having to replace the energy requirement. Nice breeze as well, so sometimes not necessary to actually flap the ears. You just stick them out and let the wind blow over all that blood network behind the ear flaps. Now, is he tusking that tree? Sniffing about, seeing what he can find. I think it's probably an apple leaf that he's under, just by the shape of that trunk. He's got decent sized tusks on him as well. I'd say he's probably somewhere in his 30s. So Lydia, yeah, there is quite a bit of vegetation that he may avoid, and elephants do that. They'll avoid particularly euphorbias, which have the poisonous latex, white milky substance, and we can see there he's just showing himself properly. We'll see when we get a better view on him. He could be. But yeah, no, they do show real preferences. They've got a healthy palate, and they've also got a very sweet tooth. So they do prefer sweet plants or sweet tasting plants, particularly the comiferas. And here in these parts, the velvet-leafed corkwood is one tree that they do love pushing over and getting to those very sweet roots. They also do it in the Namib You don't get as big comiferas in the Namib that you do here with the velvet-leafed corkwood. There they're more sort of shrubby bushes, but they pull them out all the time to get to those roots. But here in these parts, you'll see that he may be feeding on a lot of the guinea grass and the nice, juicy, sweet grasses, but he won't touch the likes of stinking grass, for instance. And he'll also probably avoid the rubber hedge euphorbias that have got those succulent leaves that's full of that milky latex. So, no, they definitely show a preference for certain things, and they do show avoidance for other plants as well. The knob thorns, they love those yellow, the white flowers that they come, on top of those. So you often see them pushing over knob thorns as well when they're in flower to get to those white flowers. What else? They love the mistletoe that parasitize a lot of the trees and transported by the little tinkerbirds and all those little birds that feed on fruits. And then they grow on trees and they make these lovely red flowers that the elephants devour they love it. And I'll push over whole trees just to get to that mistletoe. The boer beans as well, when they're in flower, lovely sweet nectar dripping out of the tree. They go for that. They love the seed pods of different trees, a lot of the acacias or vachellia. And then you do often find them also going and feeding quite a bit on sicklebush. And it's quite interesting because I've seen especially injured animals or ones that you can think that they're not feeling that great. I've seen older elephants feeding more so on sicklebush, and we call that the chemist of the bush. There's just so many healthy compounds within that tree, helps for all sorts of ailments. So it's interesting that elephants do, when they're injured or they do seem a bit sickly or old, they feed on that quite a lot, which then says to me that it makes them feel better when they do feed on it. So I think they've got a sweet tooth. I think they've got an understanding of different plants and their requirements of when they need to eat different plants. They definitely show a preference for certain things in the different seasons. When there's flowering plants or when there's no flowering plants, then they like to go for the inner bark of particularly the knob thorns as well as the marulas. I think it's quite tasty, that inner cambium, and quite a pink color to their dung. It can almost look like they're bleeding in their digestive tract when they feed a lot on the inner cambium, particularly of the marulas. But in that time, they can ring bark the trees, but that's more so in the winter months when there's not so much around. Like now, there's lots of lush grass, and the guinea grass in particular. And you see them feeding on it a lot when it's nice and green. But as it goes into the winter months, then they move and change onto other things that I think they've definitely got a taste for all sorts of different things. And I would say they're almost like the connoisseurs of the herbivores. Extremely sensitive sense of smell, and they can pick up on tiny little differences in each and every smell of everything around. So that's how they are able to find new spots with water. They're able to track it, they even say up to about 50 kilometers away. It depends on how the wind is blowing, but they can smell water from extreme distances. And I think they can also pick up on different flowering plants, etc. as well. So, I've seen it in the desert where, in the Namib, where elephants literally walk for over 100 kilometers to specific spots where there's specific plants that they've gone to target. And they know from a distance that those plants are flowering. So it's incredible. And their sense of smell, they say, is second to none. out here. There's nothing else that can smell as well as an elephant. And it's been proven in many different ways. And I've chatted about this extensively on Escape to Nature. So, yes, they even say that that an elephant would be the best to be in border control in airports, because they would literally just be able to sniff someone's bag and they could tell you exactly what's in it if they were able to identify the different smells from previous experience, which you would have obviously have, but then they would be able to tick it off, and each and every individual smell. So it's incredible. I think that bull is just happy to have moved into the area next to the waterhole. Maybe found some good feed there. Maybe he'll come down for a drink a little bit later. But nice thing around. Animals in one picture, and these hippos, the youngsters, seem to be playing nicely now again. Just off in the bottom right corner. Sounds like a chin spot bat is calling. He's just doing the chin spot part of the call, not the batters. Chin spot. And what you can just hear there, it sounds like a bit like a monkey. That is our Hammerkop calling. They're feeding on some silver cluster leaf there. Press the barbet, calling now too, and that continuous grrr. Although in this case, not continuous, he's now stopped. Let's have a look in here on the playful nature of these hippos, the youngsters. I often see them mouthing and prodding each other. But always time for play with the youngsters indeed. Look at those tusks. As always, I wish I could see what they're doing underwater. We need a hippocam. But generally in this dark, muddied water, I don't know if we'd see very much. But regardless, good to have lots of action here at the Djuma Waterhole. Ellie's still there. He hasn't moved. He's a decent-sized bull. Decent-sized tusks. Middle-aged, I would say. Now looks like he's on the move. Doesn't seem to be interested in coming for a drink. Or is he going to come down now? Maybe that is going to happen. Let's see. Come on, buddy. Let's see you go for a swim. The bulls, for me, really are the most entertaining in the water. They seem to have the most fun. The females, a little bit more serious with their calves. So not too keen to get overly boisterous in the water. As you would imagine, they're just concerned with the health and safety of the group, so they don't get out of hand, whereas the bulls very often do and take it to the max. It's like he's finding the best spot to come down, and they do like it in this particular spot, so looks like he's just heading to that. Drink time. Chinspot Battis is calling in the background quite regularly. Annie, that's a very good question. Interesting one. Weakness will be your weakness. And I would say that problem that it is. So, or anything like that, certain number of teams and literally can't grind food up enough, so they literally starve to death. And so I would say that is their ultimate weakness, in only having a limited number of teeth, as well as their terrible digestive system. And so in that sense, that is their ultimate weakness. Another one is, but it's as a result of human behavior, where there's a lot of snares around. And elephants, you often find where there is that kind of human interventions there in the bush. We then find elephants often with cut off trunks. Their very inquisitive nature, how they use their trunks for feeding, for drinking, for everything really, for tasting, for smelling the air, and picking up their food. And so they very easily get their trunks caught in snares. So those are two weaknesses that I can think of. Otherwise, they don't really have any. Their biggest enemy would be humans, particularly in areas where there is poaching, and where they go for elephant ivory. But other than that, it's just lions, where there are some areas where there's enough lions to be able to hunt even fully adult elephant bulls. And I've seen this in Moremi, in Savuti, in Botswana, where there's more than 30 lions with 5 male coalition. So yeah, that's times when they can be hunted, but it's very rare. Mainly they are big enough and strong enough to be able to chase lions off, and they don't really pose a threat, except to the little calves. But they keep such a close-knit unit in the breeding herd, so it is difficult for any predators to get a hold of a little calf elephant. And they're too clever. Their sense of smell is too strong. They've got very good eyesight. They can hear very well. So there's not too many weaknesses other than their digestive system and that very sensitive nature, or of the end of their trunk, where I would say both very strong but also very sensitive and easily caught in little traps like snares. They sometimes too can be caught in situations because of their sheer weight. And in the Namib, in the ephemeral rivers, we actually use the elephants as indications of when the rains are going to come, because they stay down in those ephemeral rivers generally throughout the year, because there's excellent feed from particularly the false acacia or Faidherbia albida, the Anna boom or Anna tree. And they love those seed pods down in those ephemeral rivers, as well as there's normally lots of water availability at the where the water comes to the surface, where the bedrock is close to the surface. And when we're following them, and suddenly the herds leave the rivers, and it's normally around the rainy season when we expect it to be coming, but we've seen it even up to and past 10 days before the rains come. The elephants leave the ephemeral rivers, because when the rivers flood, it's very easy for the calves to get stuck in the mud. So the breeding herds leave those rivers well in advance, and then the rivers come down, and we've watched it. As soon as the elephants leave, we're seeing the days, and I think the most we got to was 11 days after they had left the river, and the river was in full flow. And sometimes you don't even have the rain anywhere near to where you can see. It's way upstream, and big cloud bursts, and you can sometimes have over 6 foot wall of water coming down those ephemeral rivers and flooding it literally within seconds. So we've seen this happening, and we've also witnessed the elephants leaving the area, and they're an excellent indication, those rivers flooding. But as I say, if they don't leave the rivers, and they've probably learned this through the generations, and it's been passed down through the different matriarchs and older bulls, that you get out of that area when you can smell the rain when it's coming. So that's another excellent indicator of their serious strength in smell, because I think that is the ultimate indicator for them of when the rain is going to be coming, and they can probably smell it off in, hundreds of kilometers away in the distance, being blown through with the wind. So they leave those areas, and I'm pretty sure that they would have done this from experience of babies getting caught in the mud, and sometimes they can even die. So their heavy weight can also be a weakness. So I would say those three for me: the very sensitive nature of their trunk, their terrible digestive system, and that they only have a finite set of teeth, as well as their weight, which can sometimes be a hamper for them, and that can also be life-threatening in particular instances. Looks like he's gone to that tree for a scratch. Look at that. Oh, he's going to get into that. You can almost imagine his back leg starting to do the rabbit. Oh, he's really loving that. I think he knows this tree pretty well, and he came past just for that. Classic. So he's had his drink. He's sprayed himself with a bit of water, particularly behind the ears. You might find he heads off and goes to a trusty dust bathing spot after disappear off into the thickets. So it seems like it's an elephant morning, and fantastic. Lovely having discussions about them. My biggest experience is with the desert elephants, but I've also had experience of elephants all over the place. But from this Djuma bull elephant, let's head you on over to Lauren with the Madikwe elephant.
If there was a competition, which there's not, I think Madikwe would win. Rianne's just going to give you a lovely pan of what we are looking at in front of us right now. Wow, huh? That is a lot of elephants. Multiple different herds, multiple different bulls. Everybody's just doing their own thing in different parts of the waterhole, and it really is quite incredible. And this is a lot of elephants. And you know, it's all calm. Yesterday there was a bit of chaos. They were upset and there was lots of vocalizations and running around, but here everyone's just having fun. It's not as windy as it was yesterday. Wind can sort of affect how the elephants behave. They don't really like it. Neither do I, to be honest. And look at this. Alan, herds, no, not really. Remember, the herd life is very much a cohesive, tight-knit social structure where really it's just a bunch of females looking after their offspring. They may have some older bulls there that are not quite ready to leave the herd, but they'll still be someone's offspring. And to engage in conflict would be foolish, because calves could get injured, calves could die. Sorry, I've just seen a big bird soaring. Don't worry, Rian, you won't manage to see because of the roof. I just want to check if it's a marshal. I think it might be. Hopefully it lands. Yes, it would be foolish. Calves could get injured, could be fatal. Cows could get injured, which means it could be fatal, or it could seriously affect their ability to mother or allo mother. And conflict is not worth it, really, in any organism. But when it comes to the bulls, absolutely. But you were asking about the herds, so not really. You will find herds actually enjoy socializing. There might be some sort of genetic relation there or friendship relation, and they actually will socialize. The cows will socialize, the calves will socialize, and of course the young bulls will tussle and do what they do. So it's often a social occasion. It's almost like coming to a bar in the afternoon, and some people are eating and some people are drinking, and it's all very casual. And you'll see acquaintances that you know, you'll say hello, then you'll see friends that you really do engage with, and then there are strangers in there that you just don't talk to at all. So it's just like that, but conflict within herds is very, very rare. Yes, matriarchs and other cows can get very angry, but normally the herd will just leave. They'll immediately remove themselves from the situation and leave. Cows can fight, but it's very, very rare. Nothing like what the bulls can do. But this is a whole moment of socialization here. A lot of them are just interacting. Herds will recognize each other through scent, so they will know, that's my friends. I can smell you, friends. And they'll also know if they don't know the herd, for strangers, because they won't recognize their scent. But it's important for adults to interact with young, adults to interact with other adults. There's a whole element of socializing going on here. And more elephants are still incoming. It's incredible. How we have this many elephants. And this is a good opportunity for mating as well. The cows don't really enjoy a big bull trailing their herd, to be honest, especially if they don't really know them, if they've got no relationship with them. And it can be quite a scary time because bulls are big and they're also in must, so it can be quite a daunting time. Of course they tolerate it because they have no option, but around a waterhole, cows will meet bulls in must and bulls will meet cows in estrus, and it makes sense that it's a perfect opportunity to mate. Although cows never really seem to enjoy a big bull's presence, although we don't know that, I guess, they obviously have to mate. Of course they have to mate in order to have offspring. Darby and I got really lucky. We saw mating many times last year, very close to the vehicle as well. It's really quite something to see. Celine, it is elephant heaven. I love it too. It's just mean, you could just sit for hours and hours and you don't even know where to look. There's so much to see, there's so much to listen to. There's so much we understand, there's so much we don't understand, and yeah, wow. And it's not just elephants. If we just look, yeah, you can see the zebra. There are also warthog around. The buffalo has disappeared. Impalas have been on the periphery. It's not just the elephants, but naturally, elephants being elephants, they do dominate water holes.
Hi, Wild Earth lovers. I'm Holly. I'm from Rochester, New York, and I'm a wildlife explorer. I'm also the proud and ecstatic recipient of a 3-night stay at Matswiri Safari Lodge in the Decoy Game Reserve. So Wild Earth, I want to thank you for being there. I want to thank you for this wonderful prize, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you shortly.
Sign up today and you could be the one experiencing it for yourself.
For the bulls, this is a big party. To live quite a solitary life, but to come down, this is really a party for them where they do get to socialize and they do get to meet ladies. Really not unlike that bar I was telling you about. It's pretty much the same concept. The males are out to find the ladies. And yesterday on Drive, I read out a beautiful quote that mentioned illusion. And I actually wanted to read further about it, and I wanted to read a sentence to you that's from the book that I just adore called An Immense World by Ed Yong. And it says, "The act of sensing creates an illusion that ironically makes it harder to appreciate how the senses work." And I thought, wow, that's just what I was trying to talk about yesterday with my little quote. And if you think about it, when you look at something, right now we're all looking at the elephants. Even though I'm here, you're wherever in the world, we're all looking at the same thing. So we can see it. We've got a visual picture. But none of us, I don't believe any of us, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I don't believe any of us are aware, consciously aware of the photoreceptors that are firing in your eyes to allow you to see. None of us. So we're seeing, but the act of us seeing is creating an illusion because we're not actually aware of how we're seeing on a conscious level at all. We never think about that. And if any of you do, please do let me know, because I want to chat to you and get to know you better. And think about when you touch something in front of you right now. Rian's touching the camera, I'm touching the steering wheel, whatever is in front of you, just touch it. You can feel whatever it is, right? And the trumpeting begins. So you can feel whatever it is, but you're not feeling the mechanoreceptors, that are actually detecting the pressure. You're just simply feeling, you feel. So it's an illusion that we just put our hand out and we feel, but actually there's mechanoreceptors in your fingers and everywhere that are detecting pressure and allowing you to feel. So I guess in a way our experiences of the world around us actually feel disconnected from the very sense organs that produce them. Does that make any sense? We're disconnected from the actual sense itself. We're only aware of what we see, what we hear, what we feel, but we're not aware of the sort of operation that is going on behind that, if that makes any sense. So, sorry, didn't expect Riyadh to put the camera back on me there. So when you think about it, we are connected on so many levels, but we're also disconnected from that. And when it comes to animals, I was also thinking that I wonder how connected on a level they are with their sensory realm. And although Ed Zong tries so hard to decipher it on so many levels, are they also creating their illusion? It's really easy to believe, because we are so disconnected, that what we're seeing, feeling, or hearing, or whatever it may be, is purely mental constructs, completely separate from the physical reality. And of course, we'll never have an answer to how animals really feel, how they really hear, how they really smell. Ed Yong does his best in this book, but it's not possible to fully 100% know. And I just thought that that was really interesting. I don't know if you guys agree or have any opinion on that, but the act of sensing creates an illusion that ironically makes it harder to appreciate how the senses work. It creates this barrier. And it's our brain that does it, it's we that do it. Anyway, I very much look forward to hearing your thoughts on that, but for now, we're going to send you to Okokoyo.
So it looks like Lauren's got a festival of elephants there, and I've just got a festival of mixed game here at the Okukuyu Waterhole. As per usual, as the day heats up, we have lots and lots more animals coming down to drink. Lots of zebra, springbok, there's oryx, and there's also the odd blue wildebeest. I haven't seen any of the impala yet, but I'm sure they'll show themselves sooner or later. And while we just watch all the movement here, I'd just like to point out that Escape to Nature will be taking a break. And the last show will be on the 30th. So I believe that is Sunday. And after that, we will be coming back at a later stage. Amakhala and Madikwe will still be featuring on the sunrise and sunset shows. And the waterholes can still be watched on the Wild Earth app. But after the 30th, there won't be the Escape to Nature show anymore. For now. Just so that you know as well. So take it all in. But I'm sure there's lots of things going to be happening on the horizon. So we just have to wait and see. A nice group of oryx there. They really like going into the middle. Looks like they're all moving as a unit as well now. Some more coming in from the right. Cindy Lee, I love them. They, for me, are the most regal of all the antelope. And to see oryx in the dunes in the south near Sossusvlei is something out of this world. As well as when you see them out on the Etosha Pan, where I do believe that they go for a little bit of solitude. And I think they find it quite safe out there because they can see for miles. So there are places where you can go on the Etosha Pan itself and drive out a little bit. And then you're actually able to get out of your vehicle because like the animals, you can also see for very, very far, long distance. And so it's one of the safe spots to get out in the Etosha National Park. You're not allowed to get out of your vehicle or open your doors anywhere else except at the toilet or picnic spots and a couple of spots out on the pan itself because of that sheer distance from any kind of cover. So it's incredible, and I highly recommend it. And being able to see oryx in these particular landscapes, it's sensational. It's just something totally different that you don't see anywhere else. And it's one of those bucket list things to do. So if it gets you to Namibia, well, that makes me happy. And you'll often see that when the oryx do move into particular areas, the other animals do give them quite a wide berth because of those very sharp horns of theirs, and they're very good with them. They're extremely accurate. When I was young and we went on some of our rugby tours, we would often go and stay at some farms down in the Karoo. And the one farm that we used to go to, there was some quite habituated oryx. And the farmer used to always ask us to try and not with very hard throws, but just to lob stones at the oryx and see if we could hit it. And we never could because we used to lob the stones and they used to hit it away with their horns. It was incredible. So we used to find it quite a nice game. But the oryx were not perturbed in any way whatsoever, and they seemingly also liked the game. It was like a cricket match. but we could never get the oryx out because he always hit us for a 6. Those games that you play when you're kids. The other one was with bats, where we used to take little stones and throw them up in the air when there's lots of bats flying around, and then watch them as they fly and try and chase the stone. But as it's sort of heading towards the ground, you can see them, they realize that it's not a live thing, and then they leave it alone. So they're even able to identify if something is alive or an insect or not, that the echo sounding is so accurate that they're able to even pick that up. We never saw any of the bats actually take the stone, thinking that it's an insect, but they would initially chase it, and then they would leave it alone at the last second. Very, very interesting, that echo sounding location of bats. And I think that then leads to the conversation about biomimicry, where we follow or we copycat naturally occurring phenomenon. Like, for instance, with aeroplanes, scientists having copied birds in the way that they design the wings for the very big aeroplanes that we have now, as well as echo sounding that is used in fish finders, it's used in navigation, it's used in working out the depth in the oceans, in rivers, etc. And having copied the echolocation capabilities of bats, and then being able to use that in technology that we now have and use in very intricate operations as humans. And those are two very good examples of aeroplanes and echo sounding. So biomimicry examples. Let's hear what you can think of. I've given 2 examples. I'm also going to ask the other naturalists what they can think of as what we use as humans that we have mimicked from nature. And I've used those 2 examples of birds and bats for flying and for echo sounding. What else? Let's throw them out there. Here comes some kudu. Looks like one bull with a few females. I think oryx are definitely the most regal of all the antelope, but in my mind, I think then the kudu has to come in just behind the oryx, as also being very elegant. For me, especially the bulls with their very extravagant horns. And sometimes they can be huge. And it's incredible how they can use those and keep them out of the way when they move through the thick brush, and how they sort of rest them down on the back of their neck, the top of their neck as they move through. And it always amazes me how they don't get tangled up in the bush. When you do see brush sort of on the horns of kudu, it's generally the they want to have that as a decoration. I think when kudu do fight with the bushes, it's sort of quite a dominant thing to do, quite like when impala do it as well. But then adding brush and collecting it up on their horns, I think it does, in a way, start to make them look bigger. So I say decoration, but it's quite a sort of testosterone fueled decoration. Beautiful facial markings as well. I have to say kudu and Inyala probably on a level pegging in terms of their beautiful things.
Okay, so we left that area where those secretary birds were. Unfortunately, we never saw them again, so we don't know exactly where the nesting site is. But yeah, a little bit of work for another day. And we've just stopped here between the dunes and we're just enjoying the beautiful view. Look at this, very cool. And some of you might have seen that beautiful elephant sighting that we had when they're all walking very close to one another just as the sun was going down. It was actually sort of in between these two dunes over here. And there's a little path that actually runs in there. The elephants like to use it to go straight to Hlosi Lodge where they have a nice little drink of water there. Not sure where they're hanging out this morning. I know 1 or 2 bulls were seen this morning with the elephants, but not the breeding group. So we're not 100% sure where they are. We just missed the lions this morning. The guides on the reserve, they did have a sighting. The lions were laying right next to the river line. And as we were starting to make our way down one of these hill roads into the basin, they managed to just go into the drainage line and disappeared. But we know more or less where they are. Just trying to think when it was, the beginning of last year, or was it the end of the year prior to that? I can't remember exactly. But the southern ground hornbills, they landed on the reserve for a brief period of time. And they were actually seen for the first time near Hlosi Lodge. I think they were probably drinking water or looking for that water. But they walked all around this area over here. A few of the guides were very excited. They drove from the very far lodges and they had a good look at the hornbills. Now myself and some other guides were on a tracking assessment and we really wanted to take a look at them, but of course, you know, the assessment comes first and we focused on that, and so we missed that sighting, unfortunately. But you never know, in the future ground hornbills just might make a return again, and maybe we even get to show them to you. Okay, Morgan has spotted some zebra just walking down the slope there. There's quite a bit of warm temperatures at the moment, so you might be seeing a little bit of heat waves. Nothing we can do about that, but we can definitely look at the zebra. Yeah, zebras, they really enjoy this place. They're always found here. And yeah, I remember when I used to work at one of the lodges out here, the minute we started the game drive, we'd come along here and we would find zebra, eland and all sorts of other antelopes. But it seems like the eland and the other antelopes have dispersed a bit. Okay, we're going to push on just a little bit more. Let's head off to Ralph at Ukukuyo Salon.
So I just got a constant stream of game here, which is carried on at Okukuyo. Another, but it's a different, oopsie. Let me zoom out a little bit. I don't know what happened there. But we've got another oryx that's come in for a drink. There he is. And they like to go to that particular spot, it seems. Lovely. Everybody quenching their thirst, taking on lots of water. I would say a few liters each. Oh, and some more arriving.
Hi there, my name is Robert Williams, Dr. Rob in the Yahoo chat. I've been a longtime supporter of Wild Earth, and I just got an email from them informing me that I had won a trip to the Thakadu River Lodge in Madikwe. And I am looking forward to accepting this prize and making a trip to Africa and seeing all the interactions with wildlife, particularly predators like hyenas, in person.
Sign up today and you could be the one experiencing it for yourself. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Get a bit of a closer look on this group. And that little grebe seems quite curious. Whenever there's animals in the middle, it goes over and visits. I wonder if maybe they're kicking up something from the bottom of the water body, and that it's going underwater to go and forage as they move around. Seems to be emptying out a little bit now. It was full of animals a minute ago, and you see that now. Everybody's had their drink, they're moving off, but I'm sure there'll be another wave of animals coming down, not too long. So, and while we're watching this, I'm sure there will be some highlights or the best bits of the Escape to Nature show. And you can go onto the website as well as onto the app, where you will see the highlights, or as we call it, the best bits of both, all three: Escape to Nature, the Sunset Safari, as well as the Sunrise Safari. So if you've missed out on the show itself, or you'd like to just check out the highlights, please head on over to those different platforms and you can see the best bits. You might hear some people laughing there. That's obviously just guests that are coming down to the waterhole. They've probably returned from their morning game drive. And now, just in this time before lunch, come and spend some time at the waterhole. Doesn't make any effect on the animals. So nothing to worry about. They're quite used to it, and it doesn't change their behavior in any way whatsoever. So it looks like the Springbok have got the waterhole to themselves. Although some animals coming down from the distance there. It's probably the best time of the year to hear Springbok vocalizing now, heading into the next month or so. So Cindy Lee, nothing to worry about here with crocodiles. There aren't any crocodiles in the entire Etosha National Park, and in fact anywhere else in Namibia, apart from the extreme north and the extreme south, where there's permanent rivers. Orange River, unfortunately not so anymore, where there used to be crocodiles, but obviously with human encroachment, there are no more. But in the extreme north, you've got the Kunene River that borders Angola. There's lots and lots of crocodiles there, as well as in the northeast, in the Caprivi Strip, with the Zambezi and the Chobe and the Kavango River. Yes, full of crocodiles and hippos, but none so here in the Etosha National Park. You see, the Kunene River used to feed this area and created this massive inland sea, but through tectonic movements and shifting of plates, the river was diverted to the ocean, and this was thousands of years ago. So ever since then, the crocodiles have obviously maintained themselves in the river itself. There might have been crocodiles here for a period of time until the larger water body dried up. Then they would have either have to move back to the Kunene River or perish. And so I think there was probably quite a bit of both that happened with them. But as a result, there are no more any crocodiles in this particular area of Namibia, only in that extreme northern parts. So nothing for the animals to worry about. And because this has been over such a long period of time, it's been through the generations of them not being scared of the water and no animals being grabbed by crocodiles. And so they've really relaxed and they don't fear that there's any danger within. And you see there in the background, we've got some more dust devils that are passing through. There's very sandy whirlwinds. As the day heats up, we generally see lots and lots of those. Stunning when you see it over the Etosha Pan itself, with the white that extends up, sometimes over a kilometer into the sky. There's another female kudu that's coming on the right. You see a pied crow that's just flown over. That's them that's calling. So, springbok, zebra, oryx, kudu, what we have now. Pied crows, blacksmith lapwings calling. Something spooked the springbok. And the oryx obviously taking notice. It seems like they had a false alarm. So, I'm not going anywhere as per usual. I'm manning the water holes. I'm on water hole watch. But yeah, it's been lovely and it just carries on performing as per usual. But it seems like Lauren's waterhole is also performing.
So much has been happening here. We had little Floppy here, and I really wanted to show her to you, but sadly she's left. She came down with her mum with the collar, so it's definitely the same pair, and never mind. But we do have kudu, zebra, and a whole troop of baboons came down, which is just fascinating to see baboons sort of running around like crazy in amongst all of these elephants. It really is just chaos here. But it's nice to see the kudu. We don't often get to see them so relaxed around water holes. Remember, they don't hang around for long. And I think because the vehicle's been sitting here for so long that the animals have sort of forgotten that we're there. If we just arrived on the scene now, I think this big gorgeous bull would actually have left. We're trying to be a mobile jam cam. I've so fallen in love with that little floppy ear. Mom doesn't keep her around the waterhole for too long, though. Maybe there are just too many elephants, who knows? Catherine, me too. Great minds. We've been able to identify quite a few individuals just from our time at Clow Dam. Some of the bulls and, for example, Little Floppy Ear and her mom. So that's already a start into identifying individuals, and it's already a start into slowly learning the behavior of it.
Oh, dear, life's tough. Oh, Sib, life is hard. Oh, woe. Woe is the itchy elephant. The elephant that itched. I think I shall write a children's book about it. And on each page, the little elephant will find a new way to scratch. Oh, he's given up. Given up the ghost. Yes, that's right. Got at her.
Well, yes, back at Okukuyu, lots of springboks still around, milling, going for a little bit of a feed here just in front of the camera. And there's still the remnants of the last rains and the Stipagrostis or bushman grass that grew as a result. And so there is a little bit of feed around. There's not many animals that would be able to utilize something that's as dry as the Stipagrostis is currently. But the springbok are able to extract any kind of nutrition. So they're one of the best at doing that, coupled with the likes of the oryx. So it's amazing what they can survive on. Quite a bit of clouds around, but it is, as we said earlier, quite high clouds. Sometimes you can even have the fog coming through to here, but it's quite high when it gets here, and then it does dissipate usually as the day rolls on, gets into the heat of the day. So it might be a bit of a mixture of clouds and fog. And another lone oryx. There you can see the sun just disappearing behind the clouds now. You would think that it cools things off, but it often can even make it even hotter. It seems to magnify the heat. And you do hope that the clouds disappear at night, because if they don't, it holds in the heat of the day. And I've found that, especially when you're camping, that those are the hottest evenings, is when it's overcast, and it was overcast before it got dark, and then it just really holds that heat in, and it's quite incredible. So when I've been in Etosha on those kind of very hot summer days and going into the night, I would often go to the camp swimming pool and have a dip in the middle of the night, and then in that way thermoregulate nicely, and I would have a nice night's sleep. So there is also a little bit of a prevalence of malaria, particularly now in Etosha. So if you are heading there, it's important just to do all your precautions. For me, the best is covering up and using anti-mosquito products. But if you need advice from your doctor, but you do need to take care around this part of, or this time of the year. After the rains, as it dries up later in the year, it pretty much disappears. But there can be a small amount of malaria in Etosha. So something just to think about if you are thinking of traveling there. Very different in the Caprivi. There's a high prevalence of malaria. So best to take the highest amount of caution if you're heading into those parts. Not so much in Etosha, but it is something to think of. I see that springbok on the right had one deformed horn. Let's just see if we can catch up to it. That one on the right horn is growing all the way to the side. That's a bit of a strange horn growth. And that one there is just heading off now. I think it's a female. Funny. Cindy, they are indeed, aren't they? They're very long ears. They're not that broad. They do remind me a little bit of mountain reedbuck and the common reedbuck as well, but reedbuck in general, their ears are quite long and pointy. They're quite similar to that of the springbok. This male springbok in the foreground. You can see there are some spots here around the waterhole that they do make use of and make middens. So it looked like he was just dropping off his chemical communication. Here are some of the Namako sandgrass now. Very nice liquid core. Beep-a-doo. To be thinning out again. Real rhythmical flow of the activity here at the waterhole. Mary Ann, you're most welcome. It's always a pleasure to be able to watch both the Okukuyu and the Djuma waterholes and be in control of the cameras and then just sharing my thoughts. So I'm glad you appreciate it, but thank you for jumping on board with us. It's because of the likes of you that we do what we do, and it all makes it worthwhile. Where are the elephants? That's what I want to know. I know where they are, but I want them back. They need to hurry up now because it's lovely having them here as well. Oh, lone looks like a bull, blue wildebeest. The wildebeest don't seem as comfortable as the oryx and zebra and springbok into the middle of the water. They tend to stay a little bit more outskirts. All right, so as it seems to be just quietening down a little bit here, the wind seems to be picking up a little bit, and I think the animals have maybe quenched their thirsts and headed off for either shade or a bit of grazing, probably more so the former. But while we wait and see when the next wave is going to arrive, let's head on over to Djuma. Where we have a southern ground hornbill. Looks like it's feeding. There's a pair. Always nice to see hornbills with the rarity of them, you know, and their numbers dwindling. It's always a privilege to see when they are about. I think this is probably a... see one there. I don't know if there is another one. So that's awesome. Just do a quick double take on the waterhole itself. Keep checking in these thickets. There can always be a leopard around. In these Tamboti thickets here. And with the impala also rutting now, you need to look for those Christmas presents in the trees, the male, the rams hanging in the trees, and then you know that there's leopards around. It's like a Tamboti forest down on that side, below the dam wall. Spent many days walking in there looking for leopards and finding them. So yeah, the search continues. What are we going to find? Lovely to see those hornbills. Let us keep searching. think our elephant has moved off. The hippos will be present, most likely. They're not going to be going anywhere. What is that? Is that our Hammerkop? I think so. Is it? Or is that just part of the log? Some bark? Not quite sure. Very often see the reptiles out on this particular log. Oh, there we go. There's a terrapin sunning itself. Look at that. With its legs sticking straight out the back. Being ectothermic, getting its energy quota for the day, and then generally heading off to forage. And they are omnivorous, are the marsh terrapins, so they can also hunt. I've even seen them hunting doves, and at Okukuyu as well. And there's our solar-powered reptile, the terrapin, getting his energy for the day. What else do we have around? Nice spot for the elephants to come in, also for any of the predators. Let's check to see if we can't see any tracks. It's a little bit difficult. I think you can see there where the elephants came down to drink yesterday. And they do like it on that side because it's the gradient, or it's not as steep as in other spots, so they can have easy access to the water. Buffalo also like drinking over there. You need to look carefully. Maybe we'll even spot a honey badger. The water thickneys, the residents, just there on the bottom left. They're always over there. Linda, thanks for your question. Yeah, we do have the elephants coming in their herds. They come through quite regularly. It's not every day, but remembering that this is, the elephant populations here do move through according to the resources, the food availability. The fences are down to the Kruger, so they're able to move right across the entire part of the Kruger National Park and then into the Sabi Sands as well. So we can have periods where we don't see elephants for a long time, but then we have other times when they're constantly moving through. And yeah, as I say, it depends what's available and where the water is. If the marulas are fruiting, they love the marulas, and that's often when they do come into these parts. Yeah, I don't see any real rhythm to it. I think it can be a little bit random and haphazard, but we do get quite big numbers of elephants moving through these parts at times. Other times it can be pretty quiet. But over the last few days, we have had quite a lot of elephants coming through. And today, obviously, just that one bull for now. But there may be some later on and going into tomorrow. But so there are elephants in the area. And we have seen quite a few different herds. I saw Fang, the female, with the one tusk that's growing straight down. I saw her a couple of days ago with a small breeding herd. And then yesterday, I don't think that was her herd. There was a different one yesterday. And it was between 20 and 30 of them yesterday. And then there were quite a few young bulls around as well, and they spend a lot of time playing in the water. So a little bit quiet on the waterfront. But look here, these hornbills have now come right here under the camera itself. I thought they were leaving the area, but it seems they weren't. Beautiful. They're going to stretch his wings. They really seem like dinosaurs. Very typical the way they feed, though. Typical of hornbills, how they grab something and then throw it up and swallow it down. Beautiful red markings, though, and such contrast with their black feathers. So just a reminder, I mentioned it earlier, but I just want to say it again, that Escape to Nature will be taking a break. As Wild Earth want to relook at the format, and they'll be coming back at a later stage, but the last show will be on the 30th, which is Sunday. However, Amakhala and Madikwe will still be featuring in the sunrise and sunset safaris, and the waterholes will continue to be able to be watched on the Wild Earth app. Look at this guy. That is awesome. Beautiful eyelashes. Look at that. And such incredible markings. With that red around the eye and going down the chin. I wonder if he's curious of the camera, because it has been moving a bit. Really, really special birds. And that's the beauty of being able to have these remote cameras. We wouldn't be able to get this close to them in a vehicle because they'd run off and fly off. But with them not worrying about us, just with the camera. Oh, and you see what I mean? We get distracted by something, but I mean, it's very special having those southern ground hornbills. And then suddenly you look across and there's a nice big herd of elephants. Wonderful. Breeding herd with some youngsters. And they've come into that exact spot that I was speaking about. It's like we preempted it. Debbie, yes, exactly. Last minute herd. Well, I could have, if I had to choose, I'd choose maybe a last minute leopard. But I tell you what, there's not many things for me better than elephants. The ground hornbills, spectacular. That is lovely to spend time with them. It's such close range as well. But thirsty elephants and drinking at a waterhole, fantastic. Look at the little youngster. He's still trying to work out his trunk. And there's a couple of really young ones here. You can also just see difference in tusk growth. Some of them growing down, some sort of in the middle, and some almost growing upwards, like this one in the middle now. All real individuals. That one looks like it's got a bit of herpes on the trunk. See there? Just halfway down the trunk. Elephants do get herpes. And that one's obviously got it. So, folks, we're heading towards the end of the show. It's been lovely having you aboard with. Always got to say thanks to the animals for being the star of the show and giving us something to talk about. But thanks to the whole Wild Earth team, from directors to the guys behind the scenes, and the cameramen, the naturalists, and everybody else. And also don't forget to stay tuned, because we will have the Sunset Safari from 2:30, and then we get to do it all again tomorrow. So we'd love to have you aboard again. And think of all those questions and comments that you want to send through, and I'll see you again tomorrow. My name's Ralph Kirsten, and that's me for now. Bye.